So we ready? Okay, welcome everyone to the Monday, March 3rd Albany Common Council meeting. We're in our work session that we do prior to our regular meeting. Mr. Jimenez, please call the roll.
Adams, Benane, Ballin, Clark.
Here.
Conti, Farrell.
Here.
Flynn. Here. Frederick. Hoey.
Here.
Johnson. Keegan.
Here.
Kimbrough.
Here.
Love. Robinson is absent. Zamer.
Here.
9 present. We're also joined by Council President Corey Ellis, City Clerk Shaniqua Jackson, Corporation Counsel Robert McGee, Research Counsel Jake Iceland, Legislative Director Brian Jimenez, and Junior Policy Analyst Alyssa Kamara. And our intern Maggie.
Thank you. All right, so light agenda tonight. So we'll start with approval of minutes from a previous meeting. It's the Thursday, February 20th of 2025 meeting minutes. I'll be offering then on to resolutions, because we skip local laws and ordinances, to resolutions for an introduction. Yeah, it's on. Okay. How was that, sir? Yeah, okay. All right, so we're on to Ms. Love's resolution to be introduced, 132225R. It's a resolution to commemorate March of 2025 as Women's History Month and honoring the extraordinary contributions of women to the city of Albany. We'll be moving forward with that. Then next, we'll have a majority consent by me, a resolution 143125R. It's a resolution of the council expressing concern about staffing deficiencies at Albany Medical Center. I believe most of us are co-sponsors on that, if not all of us. So, yep, we'll add that by majority consent and vote on it. I would suggest taking it out of order, but I mean, we got kind of a light schedule tonight, so. Yeah. Okay, we'll take it out of order. That'll save us 5 minutes, but yeah, it's fine. All right? So yeah. Okay, and so that's it for the agenda. So talk amongst yourselves and don't get in any trouble in the next couple of minutes.
Richard and I were the only two people that came in the rain. It was not fun. Yeah. Yeah, his mom is, she's a pip. Well, she was like, I'm gonna be there for everything. Did you see the news interviews with her where she was just like, I'm gonna be there for everything? Those people are evil. Yeah, no, I mean, no, I was talking about Lyndon Norquist was, you know, like if, you know, I mean, one of the things about that was that it was very clear that his mother and sister very much loved him. Like, it wasn't like he just appeared in New York State and didn't have any close family connections. Like she's suing everyone because she kept asking for welfare checks to be done, and, you know, nobody would check on him. And it sounded like they had been in contact with him while the abuse was ongoing, and he didn't say anything. Yep. Well, because the son and his girlfriend of one of the main perpetrators were also arrested.
Yeah, we're going to be over.
Some of the offenders are LGBT folks. And it sounded to me like they were, like you're reading between the lines of what law enforcement is saying, it sounded like they were engaging in some BDSM that got really out of control. But at the vigil, you had folks talking about homophobia within the LGBTQ community, specifically directed at trans folks as well.
I'd like to call to order tonight's Albany Common Council meeting, Monday, March 5th, 2025. Can the clerk please read the roll?
Adams.
Present.
Anani. Ballerin. Clark.
Here.
Conti.
Here.
Farrell.
Here.
Flynn.
Here.
Frederick.
Here.
Hoey.
Here.
Johnson.
Present.
Keegan.
Here.
Kimbrough.
Here.
Love. Robinson. Zamer.
Here.
13 present, 2 absent.
Thank you. And please stand with me and join me for Pledge of Allegiance, and after that, we'll have a moment of silence. Now we'll move on to next item on the agenda is our public comment period. During the public comment period, you have 5 minutes to speak upon any issue you wish to speak about. You will come to the desk, state your name and address for the record. There will be a green light, means go. Yellow light means you have 1 minute remaining, so conclude your comments, and your red light means to stop. At that time, council members cannot answer your questions during your statement. They cannot answer it. If they choose to respond to your statements, they will do so later on in the agenda. So with that being said, can the clerk please call the first speaker?
Jennifer Bejo.
No problem.
Hi, everybody. Good evening. Thank you. First and foremost, I would like to thank you for giving us nurses the opportunity to be here. It's an honor. We really appreciate it.
Just state your name and address for the record real quick.
My name is Jennifer Bejo. My address is 624 Mercer Street, Albany, New York.
Thank you.
I'm one of the nurses from Albany Med. I'm also like a member of the bargaining committee. Also for like a long time, I've also been a part of the staffing committee in the hospital, which played an essential role in bringing attention to the staffing crisis in the hospital. As everyone knows, the staffing deficiency report released by the New York State Department of Health last week confirms that, what we all know is to be true, that the hospital has egregiously disregarded staffing law, the state law, and continually put patient care at risk. It also showed Albany Med was found to have the worst staffing issues in the state. And with that, just today, our emergency department had more than 50 holds. Patients are in the areas that the Department of Health, patients are in the areas of the ED where the Department of Health has said in that report that patients cannot be held. There is no adequate care for these patients. Some of these hallway beds don't even have the necessary equipment we need in order to care for our patients appropriately, and we find it totally unacceptable. And this is not just a community-wide issue. It affects people well beyond the capital region. With that, the nurses, we thank the Albany Common Council for supporting nurses and valuing patient care by passing this resolution. The community support we have received from allies and elected officials has been essential to holding this hospital accountable. We are fighting against one of the most powerful employer in the capital region, and it is only through the support of the community that we will ensure that Albany Med begins to take patient care seriously and address the staffing crisis. While nurses are undoubtedly tired from calling attention to these issues while caring for our patients, your support give us the strength to keep fighting Albany Med until we get what nurses and this community deserves. Once again, thank you all for your support, and thank you for listening to us.
Thank you. Can the clerk call the next speaker?
Linda Pierce.
Good evening, I'm Linda Price, 175 South Swan Street, Albany, New York. I'm going to be brief. I'm speaking on the fluoridation water. You know, I think everyone knows fluoride is an unwanted byproduct of aluminum and fertilizer. Net sales a year on a global business is $1.2 billion. Fluoride is a neurotoxin, critical in children's brain development, bone fractures, and joint problems. Then why take a chance adding this to our municipal drinking water? Using this 50-plus-year-old science, which used to support fluoridating water, now out of step with the latest research. Think about the children. Did you know that when they have a fluoride spill on the highway, they can't breathe and have to go to the hospital? Did you know that since 1951, Kentucky is the #1 fluoridated state in America? Then why is it at the bottom 8 states for oral health and tooth decay? The culprit is processed food, sugar, soda, and poor diet and bad health, bad hygiene, excuse me. I just want to read this to you and you think about it, ponder it. This is part of an article that I came upon 2009, but it's been floating around since 2002. Just going to read a segment from it. The poisons will be hidden in everything that surrounds them and what they drink, eat, breathe, and wear. We must be ingenious in dispensing the poison, for they cannot see. We will teach them that the poisons are good with fun images and musical tones. Those they look up to will help. They will enlist them. We will enlist them to push our poisons. When their teeth decay, we will fill them with metals that will kill their mind and steal their future. When their ability to learn has been affected, we will create medicine that will make them sicker. Rudolf Steiner, that's just a portion of this long document. Rudolf Steiner, 1861 through 1925 is when he died. He predicted the future medicine will be used to eliminate the soul from humanity. He warned under the guise of health, and you fill in the rest, could be administered soon after birth to prevent the development of awareness of the soul and spirit. And he wrote the top of this article called The Elimination of the Soul with Medicine. People, that's what's going on. So we better think about the children, because this was something that's been in the making for a very long time. Like I said, just ponder what I said about how they were getting it. The food, the air, the clothing. Just think about that. And then you'll know whether you should fluoridate the water or not, because you can always use it topically, but not to ingest it. Thank you.
Thank you. Can the clerk please call the next speaker?
Tom Ellis.
ready? Good evening, everybody. My name is Tom Ellis. I live in Albany on North Pine Avenue. Happy to be here. I hope you're enjoying the nice weather we're having here at the end of the winter. I mean that seriously. Some people like winter. Okay. I'm going to talk about community water fluoridation again. Okay. While discussing community water fluoridation at the end of the November 18th Common Council meeting, Councilman Hoey said that several members of the council grew up in New York City, where water has been fluoridated for decades, and he did not see any reduction in IQs among council members. I'm paraphrasing you there, Mr. Hoey, and I don't have the exact quote because I don't think there's a recording of that on the city's website. I couldn't find it even as late as yesterday. Okay. My question is, how could you know this? How could this be measured or determined? I'm serious about that. Perhaps some council members misunderstand my colleagues and my opposition to community water fluoridation. We are not asserting that every or most children born to women who drink fluoridated water will have lower IQs than children born to women who do not drink fluoridated water. But we are asserting that some statistically significant number of children will suffer IQ deficits, but no one will be able to identify which children lost some of their mental abilities due to the fluoridation. It is impossible to identify specific individuals who experienced the IQ loss, but using widely accepted statistical methods, it's possible to establish that harm was done to some portion of the people who drank the fluoridated water. So for those of you who grew up in New York City drinking fluoridated water, you may have, but you probably did not experience an IQ loss as a result of that. But it is impossible to know for sure. Okay? But wouldn't we all like to be smarter than we are? For some people, being exposed to water fluoridation might make or have made the difference in winning or not being awarded an academic college scholarship. So my question to you is, why do a majority of you persist in desiring to put fluorides in the city water supply when the latest and the best science from around the world, including the National Institute of Health's National Toxicology Program, has established an inverse correlation between water fluoridation and human IQ? The greater the amount of fluoride in the water, the greater the IQ loss. I am not saying that fluorides are like lead or radiation and that there is no safe level higher than 0. But I am saying that 0 is almost certainly safer than 0.7 parts per million. No one has ever established that 0.7 parts per million is safe, and some of the studies assert that it may not be safe. We should take a precautionary approach, and if we're going to make a mistake, we should err on the side of caution. We should respect science and reject fluoridation, rather than put even a tiny amount of a potentially hazardous chemical in our water supply. We are all different people. Some of us get more serious colds than others, have allergies, compromised immune systems, weaker bones, malfunctioning kidneys, are elderly, got COVID or long COVID, others did not or do not. Many people are in precarious health and may not know it. And a little fluoride drunk several times every day for decades might have a significant negative impact on some people. Some of us are more susceptible to injury than others, and some are overburdened with toxins. Prenatals, newborns, infants, and toddlers may be especially vulnerable because their little bodies are rapidly growing. And as I've said, there are many other ways of preventing and treating tooth decay than water fluoridation. Water fluoridation is not our only option. So concluding here, it's best to protect the most vulnerable amongst us because it is morally the right thing to do, and it is a good way to protect those who are less vulnerable. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ellis. No one else has signed up for public comment period tonight, so that concludes public comment period. Moving on to approval of previous minutes, Mr. Kimbrough.
Thank you, Mr. President. For the Thursday, February 20th, the 2025 meeting minutes.
Second.
For passage.
Thank you, Mr. Hoey. Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Approval of minutes passed. Moving on to Mr. Kimbrough. I guess we don't have any local laws? Or?
Yes. Thank you, Mr. President. Both the local laws and ordinances on the agenda.
Thank you. Reports of any standing committees? Ms. Keegan.
The workforce ethics and culture ad hoc committee presented its annual report to the council body last Wednesday during caucus.
Thank you. No more reports to standing committees. Moving on to considerations of resolutions. Ms. Love. Thank you. Can the clerk please read the resolution?
A resolution to commemorate March of 2025 as Women's History Month and honoring the extraordinary contributions of women to the city of Albany.
Discussion on this resolution. Ms. Love first, sponsor.
Your mic.
Can I ask all the women in the courtroom to stand with me, in the chambers to stand with me, all the women? This is about us. I'm going to tell you a little bit about myself. I have a long history in public service, but I was always behind the scenes working with somebody. 48 years I worked behind the scenes with Nebraska Braves, other ward leaders, and prior to 2017, I was the New York State Committee person with President Ellis, and I gave that spot up to somebody else when I decided to run for the Common Council spot down here in 2017, because I was tired of working behind the scenes, tired. Women are always behind the scenes, and my thing is we need to bump it up. We need to bump it up. But I have always have followed and admired and respected over the years, Sarah Curry Cobbs, who's gone, Sarah Logan, who's gone, Ann Pope, and Pat Fahey and others. Now, to this date, sitting down here at the chambers, and I look at Ms. Keegan, Ms. Frederick, Farrell, and Ms. Zamer, I'm very proud of us. Very proud. That we took a stand and decided to run for office, because years ago, men only held these spots down here. So I'm proud of us. I'm also proud of Shanika. She's the second female clerk that we had down here, and I forget her name, but she's another behind-the-scenes person because she's always running the equipment over there. Danielle Gillespie that left us, and Gabriela Romero, who moved up and moved on. When I see us, I see power. And we need to always try to use our power. And I'm not trying to say to take advantage of somebody. But I would like to thank the late, great Jimmy Carter for putting a resolution in for declaring March 2nd through the 8th National Women's History Week in 1980. I like to end in saying, stay strong and we can live long. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Ms. Keegan?
If I may, I want to touch on this evening one of the things that I see impacting women, particularly over the past year. It's insidious underlying homophobia, particularly with regards to trans women, and the impact that that has on all of us. As a woman who was an athlete, a high school athlete, and a collegiate athlete, I think it's unconscionable that women, and only women, have to undergo gender testing in order to compete in sports because of transphobia. And this is coming for all of us as we consider this ludicrous fight over bathroom access and other spaces in the public sphere. We are not at risk from trans women. That is not a risk for us, and we don't need to be taken care of because there's an underlying element of misogyny towards women in that argument. And I find it incredibly dangerous for all of us. The things that we need are opportunity, equal pay, and respect. That's it. And that's all I have to say.
Further discussion? Seeing none, can the clerk call the roll?
Adams.
Yes.
Anani.
Yes, co-sponsor, please.
Clark.
Yes, co-sponsor, please.
Conti.
Excuse me, yes, and I believe we're all co-sponsors? Yes.
Co-sponsor.
No, co-sponsor.
Co-sponsor. Okay. Conti, co-sponsor. Okay. Farrell.
Yes, and I believe all the women are definitely co-sponsors.
Okay.
So just say yes.
Flynn.
Yes, co-sponsor.
Frederick.
Yes.
Hoey.
Yes, co-sponsor, please.
Johnson.
Yes, co-sponsor, please.
Keegan.
Yes.
Kimbrough.
Yes, co-sponsor, please.
Love.
Yes.
Zamer.
Yes.
13 in the affirmative.
Resolution passes. Continuing on, Mr. Kimbrough.
Thank you, Mr. President. Motion to add Resolution 14-2225R by majority consent.
Is there a second on that?
Second?
Mr. Hoey seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion passes. Mr. Kimbrough.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. Notice Resolution 14-2225R and ask for its passage, introduction and passage.
Thank you. Can the clerk please read the resolution?
A resolution of the Common Council expressing concern about staffing deficiencies at Albany Medical Center.
Discussion on this resolution. Mr. Kimbrough.
Yes, sir. Yes, we're introducing Resolution 2125R to express the council's deep concern regarding the ongoing staffing deficiencies at Albany Medical Center. The recent findings by the New York State Department of Health paint a troubling picture of inadequate staffing levels, violation of state law, and failures to implement meaningful corrective actions. This is not a labor dispute. It is a crisis that impacts the care and public health of our city. The Department of Health has cited 480 staffing violations, including critical shortages in neonatal intensive care unit, where our most vulnerable newborns receive care. The hospital's failure to provide adequate rest and meal breaks for overworked nurses and staff further exacerbates these issues, creating a dangerous environment for both workers and patients. Instead of taking decisive action to hire permanent staff and improve working conditions, Albany Medical Center has resorted to reducing capacity and hiring expensive travel nurses, short-term solutions that do not address the root causes of the crisis. Meanwhile, staff voices have been stifled and union representatives have faced barriers in advocating for safer working conditions. As a city, we must take a stand to support our nurses, hospital staff, and most importantly, our residents who rely on Albany Medical Center for life-saving care. This resolution calls on the hospital to comply with state laws, properly staff its facilities, and negotiate a fair contract with the dedicated professionals represented by the New York State Nurses Association. It also affirms our support for the Department of Health in enforcing compliance to ensure the safety and well-being of all who depend on this institution. I urge my colleagues to support this resolution to send a clear message. Patient safety and fair working conditions are non-negotiable.
Amen.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kimbrough. Ms. Farrell?
Thank you, Mr. President. We're fortunate for all the medical professionals that help us through dire situations, but for me personally, it has been nurses that have been the ones that have literally saved my life. When my middle son was difficult to get out, it was a labor and delivery nurse that worked through that actually got him to the point where he was delivered. We couldn't find the obstetrician, and the nurse delivered the baby most of the time. There was a different doctor that came in at the end, but it was the nurse that got my son out and that got the doctor around quickly, because he had the cord wrapped around his neck twice and would not have survived. When I nearly died 3 years ago now, because I was continually misdiagnosed, it was a nurse that was the first one that said, "This doesn't seem quite right." And I ended up going to another doctor because of it. And as I was in the hospital for quite some time, because I was misdiagnosed for so long, it was nurses that were the ones that truly were there every step of the way. They can't do that when they have too many patients. They are the ones that are with you in and out, but they can't be there to provide that service when there are too many patients, when they aren't staffed appropriately. So, I mean, this is something that it is absolutely about empowering our nurses, because we need to. You are there for us, and we need to empower you. But it's also really very life and death, because if they can't be there, if they're the ones who are there day in and day out in the moments that matter the most, catching the little things that literally are life and death, if they can't be there in those moments, people just die. So were it not for nurses, my son would not be here. And were it not for nurses, I would not be here. So I am incredibly grateful, and it's also something that I think it's important for us to be there for them, and I appreciate Councilmember Kimbrough and all of my colleagues for supporting this and doing all we can to support you and for everything you do. So thank you.
Mr. Johnson?
Thank you, Mr. President. As I sit here and I listen and I think about it, all you have to do is go to the hospital. If you go to the hospital and you have to stay for any amount of time, you will get a firsthand sight of how short-staffed the nurses are. And so I said this before, and I'm going to say it again. The whole concept of nursing needs to be reevaluated, because most people understand that, if you're a traveling nurse, you're going to get paid more. And so as an educator, it would be like a substitute teacher coming in getting paid more than the teacher. What sense would that make? And that's how we push our best nurses away, because everybody's in chase, on the chase for the biggest purse. So it's not hard to fix, because if we have money to pay visiting nurses 3 and 4 times the amount, then we have money to pay the nurses that are there, that have the relationships with the community. And this is the stuff that bothers me. I think that what we're talking about tonight is a step in the right direction, but we also have to talk about that emergency room that exists in that hospital. It is treacherous. A lot of times, people don't even want to go to the emergency room at Albany Med. And I just say, for a hospital that I've watched grow, in size, in the 56 years that I've been alive, it's astonishing to see how small the emergency room has stayed. So we have a lot of work to do with what's going on in Albany Med, and I'm excited to be here tonight to speak on behalf of the nurses, and I hope that they get their just due. I will be supporting it, and this conversation just doesn't stop here. Thank you.
Any further discussion? I think we're all co-sponsors. Before, I'd just like to say, I thank the nurses at Albany Medical Center for fighting. When they first organized, they had done something that hadn't been done before in this city. It's a private institution that was organized. Most of the workers in the city of Albany are public employees. This is a private employer. They took on the largest employer in the city of Albany to stand up for their patients. They took on their largest employer to fight for a safe staffing bill that was passed by our state legislators. And our hospitals continue to violate that staffing law. As council members, I wish you to reach out to the Department of Health as well and hold them accountable. This report is way overdue. This report was hard fought to get it in the hands of those members, which by law they should have gotten a long time ago. There should be a penalty for that. It's a public report. And so when you look at workers standing up for their patients, because it is about their patients. As many of you know, I worked for the Nurses Union for 8 years, and it was always about patient care. And when patient care suffers, that's when we are at our most vulnerable. We have an employer that has the money. We have an employer that refuses to want a partner. Because that's what when you form a union, that's a partnership with management. And because the private hospitals around here are not used to having workers have a voice, they don't know how to behave. They don't know how to act. All around this state, downstate, hospital workers have been in unions, and they know how to negotiate contracts. They know how to listen to the workers. For some reason in Albany, these employers feel like this is something new, so we're just going to continue to fight it. And that's why this area doesn't grow. The largest employer. This staffing bill is just not about nurses. This is about anyone who gives patient care. That's what the state staffing bill. If you have direct patient care with patients, there's supposed to be staffing levels for those positions. And that's in there for a reason. Because we know that our most vulnerable needs that attention. And I like to share this story years ago when we were fighting for the state staffing level. And this is so you get to understand when you're talking to legislators. And we would talk to them, and the legislator put me aside. He says, "Mr. Ellis." I said, "Yes." He said, "A nurse works 12 hours. I said, "Okay." She told me she had 8 patients. She can't take care of 8 patients in 12 hours? Think about that. So this legislator was thinking, oh, 12 hours, 1 patient an hour. And I said, no, that's not what you base it on. You base it on the care of the patient. I said, if the nurse has 8 patients in 12 hours, if 2 or 3 of them are critical, guess what? They need more time. I said, then when you do that, then they don't get lunches. But that's how serious it was educating legislators on what healthcare workers do on a day-to-day basis. And so when we look at this law, which the State Department of Health is supposed to enforce, we must be vigilant, and we must continue to stand with labor, whether they're union or non-union. We have to stand with those working people, because this law does cover non-union workers as well. But unfortunately, employers don't treat the non-union workers with a voice. So they can't advocate as these workers, as the nurses who organize at all the medical centers. So I'm glad that this council has consistently been pro-labor. This council has consistently supported the RNs at all the medical center, and tonight is another showing of that. So with that being said, you're all co-sponsors, so we'll do this by voice vote. All those in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Resolution passes. Continue to fight. And Councilman Kimbrough would like you guys to come up, present you with the resolution and the form. Thank you, Mr. Kimbrough. Is there any miscellaneous to come before the council? No miscellaneous? Is there a motion to adjourn? All those in favor?
Second.
Meeting adjourned.